Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network, presented to you by our sponsors, Bet365, the world's favorite sportsbook brand. Sign up with promo code ACTION to get Bet365's exclusive sign-up offer in New Jersey, Colorado, and Ohio. Bet $1 on any game and get 200 in bonus bets. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me, as always, my co-hosts and colleagues, BJ Cunningham and Anthony DeBundo. We have a full slate of Premier League matches to go over. We'll take a little tour around Europe as usual. Stop in Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, Ligue, give out our three-leg underdog parlay, and then our favorite bets in the Premier League before we get out of here. And we're going to start with the headliner in the Premier League, which is Sunday morning. A kickoff between Liverpool and Arsenal. Liverpool at home, plus 175. They are an underdog. Arsenal plus 145. The draw is plus 260. The Gunners, BJ, your Gunners, 8 points up on City going into the weekend. They've played one more match. I think people have this one circled as a potential hurdle that needs clearing by Mikel Arteta and Arsenal. Going to Anfield, taking on a Liverpool team that is mid-table this season. Defensively, a wreck relative to where they're supposed to be. Is it just too square to think that this game, which features a really, still a strong Liverpool attack, to think that it's just taken over? I think 3.5 at plus 168 I saw out there looks pretty appealing.
Yeah. I mean, I really like Arsenal team total over 1.5. You can get it at plus 115 at some shops right now. It's it's the same story with Liverpool every week in and week out, right? I mean, they're in a very difficult run of matches here. They just traveled to City and got dismantled by them. They go to Chelsea. Obviously, they don't concede, but they concede over 2.2 expected goals. And now they got to face an Arsenal offense that over their last 9 matches have only been held under 1.5 expected goal one time. And that was a match against Leicester when they were basically just controlling the entire match. So I don't really see what problems Liverpool's defense is going to present Arsenal, right? It's like the same conversation. Do you press Arsenal high? Well, they can play right through you because they're outstanding at playing through pressure. Do you sit back and try to stay compact? Well, Arsenal's incredibly good at creating overloads in the middle of the pitch and then also beating you out wide in one-on-ones with Martinelli and Saka. So I really don't know what Liverpool is going to do. They did not have an answer for Chelsea. Again, Chelsea didn't score, so the final scoreline makes it look a lot better than it did. Clean sheet for Klopp, but again, it's just when Liverpool has played the Big Six this season, in 7 matches, they've conceded 15.7 expected goals. Like, they are getting destroyed by the rest of the Big Six. So I have no reason to believe why Arsenal can't do the same here away from home. Liverpool's defense has been a little bit better at Anfield, but again, now Arsenal being without Saliba, without Tomiyasu, Anthony has been just fading their defense week in and week out on this podcast. And yeah, they continue to concede. So I would rather target the Arsenal offense here than any type of money line or draw no bet. So Arsenal over 1.5 goals for me. I project them around 1.8, 1.9 goals for this match. I think there's tremendous value on the Gunners to put the ball in the back net at least twice.
Anthony, anything for you here?
Yeah, I mean, I've faded Arsenal's defense 3 of the last 4 league matches, and we are 3-0 on those fades, and this is going to make it a 4th consecutive. I'm going to take both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. Minus 112 is the best price I was able to find out there on that. It is square, no doubt about it. We are definitely hip Huey Lewis in the news to be square here, but I don't really see a path either. Liverpool had no answers for either Man City or Chelsea in either match. And I understand that it was a rotated team. I do expect Mo Salah, Virgil van Dijk, and Thiago all to play for Liverpool. And then that upgrades them quite a bit. The market has moved very heavily against Liverpool. As of Saturday morning, Arsenal was an underdog here. The line was essentially flipped with Liverpool around plus 140, Arsenal around plus 180. My projections make this a true coin flip. So I would have a tiny bit of value on Liverpool, but again, you're really bucking. Who in the world is betting Liverpool here this weekend? That is the one thing that makes me want to bet them a little bit. Like Arsenal come in great form. They've been rolling everybody. Liverpool comes in shit form. They just got their brains beat out of them for 2 matches against superior teams. But yeah, Liverpool's matches since the World Cup break have averaged 3.5 expected goals. And, we've talked about Arsenal. They've conceded 1.2 XG per match since the World Cup in the league and have struggled a little bit defensively in Europe too against Sporting in those 2 matches. So this is an Arsenal defense that's shorthanded. It's a Liverpool attack that I still love. At home, you expect an open affair. And so I like both teams scoring over 2.5 in this one.
Saturday morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern time kickoff between Manchester United, minus 200, hosting Everton, plus 650. The draw is plus 333. The Toffees coming off a famous draw against Tottenham. Anthony, I was updating him because he wasn't watching. I couldn't really describe.
I watched it.
I couldn't really find the words to describe Michael Keane's Phil Jagielka-esque game tying goal. Everton's 3-3-3 under Sean Dyche, and that's been a minus 1.6 expected goal differential. When you look at the quality of competition and the stakes, it's pretty damn impressive. With the turnaround at Goodison Park. I think with Everton, they're becoming a team, and this isn't just me saying it as an Everton fan, that when the number gets to this range, they're live. Dyche's teams, you know what you're going to get out of them. They're going to work hard. They're going to make life hell on you in the middle of the field. They're going to fight for every ball. They're not going to give up anything cheap, whether it be on a set piece or whatever. And they're going to create on set pieces and give you a lot to think about when they have a chance from direct kicks. Those are the qualities of a good underdog. And I know this is at Old Trafford, and I know United are miles ahead of Everton, but I think the Toffees are just always going to be dangerous at paying out at these prices. Like I don't think it's unfair to say they've got 1 or 2 more wins like this left in their locker for the rest of the season with the way that they've looked under Dyche. Anthony, anything for you? I know you and BJ aren't too hot on this one from a betting standpoint.
Yeah, I was really hoping for 1.5, and I thought we'd get it, but we didn't. So I'm going to pass. I kind of think my number's a little bit high on United. I have them closer to minus 180, but I still have them as a solid home favorite here. I still have major question marks about Everton's defense, which, performed well against Spurs overall. But again, like, what does that even mean this year? Still conceded, 2 XG to Brentford, over 2 to Spurs. Don't defend well. So yeah, especially going away from home, I'd be more inclined to bet them plus 0.5 at home than I will be plus 1 on the road in this spot. If it gets to plus 1.25 flat, I'd probably still get there and bet it. But I have to lay juice for that now, like minus 120, 25 on the plus 1.25. I just can't quite get there. Look, I think we're starting to see what the problem could be for Man United going forward here with not even if after Casemiro returns, just like in the match today and the match against Newcastle, there's just not enough shots, and it's still been a problem. And it's just Antony taking bad shots, Rashford being the only consistent good shot producer, and what that means, especially when Casemiro's out, which he will be again. So this is the 3rd match of his 4-match ban, and then he'll be back for Chelsea in the end of the month, which will be a fascinating matchup. But yeah, I have no real interest here from a betting perspective. Could see a BTTS, but with United's defense kind of just being more shaky out of possession.
Another underdog I have interest in is Nottingham Forest. They're plus 450 at Villa Park. Villa's minus 175. The draw here is plus 320. I owe Aston Villa an apology. I put them on the beach like a month ago. They're 6 points out of a Champions League spot. I mean,
come on.
No, but what however you want to say
I
it,
have
however you want to say it, they're not on the beach. Like if you're 6 points out of a Champions League spot with 9 to go, you're not on the beach. So to all the Aston Villa fans, I do know one Aston Villa fan who listens to us regularly. I do apologize. You're not on the beach. You're off the beach. You're still at work.
it's too early for that, I think. But here's the
I
thing.
mean, it looked like it. Like they
how did we miss? I know they've run really well, and
right.
And the win against Leicester was no exception. Where they get the red card and then they get one turnover. Traore just shoots and he arrows it into the top corner and just shambles. But how did we not profit off of Unai Emery improving a team?
I don't know.
As a podcast, like how did we screw that up? Like I said, the defense has not gotten better at all. They just stopped
their former manager
goals.
and like me and VJ had a vendetta against Gerrard, and you had his poster up in your room. It's
funny because I bet them at the beginning of the season. Remember, I bet them best non-Big Six team at like 7-1, and I wrote that ticket off for dead. And then I went back and I looked at it. I was like, are we still live here? And like we're not because of Newcastle and Brighton. But for one moment, I was like, that ticket could win. But yeah, I mean, look, like their defense has stopped conceding goals, but they haven't stopped conceding chances. And so for me, that makes them a dangerous favorite. Yeah. I think they're clearly better than Forest. If this gets over 1, though, I'm going to take the trees.
I like Forest. I think
they're not good enough defensively to trust them. No, Villa, Forest too, but Villa in this situation.
Since the World Cup, Aston Villa has the 4th most points in the Premier League, games in hand, whatever. But that's despite a -5.5 expected goal differential and the 3rd worst expected goals allowed. Their expected points, according to Understat, 17. Actual points, 26 in that time frame.
Yeah, and Macro
Something's coming for this team.
Macro has them conceding 1.1 goals per match, and since the World Cup, conceding about 1.8 xG per match. And that's a huge gap.
Yeah.
It hasn't necessarily been shot stopping either. I went back and looked at some of the Martinez numbers, and like he's been slightly above average.
He's still on
the
beach. He's still on the beach.
Yeah, I mean, he personally. Yeah.
So Aston Villa not on the beach. Their goalkeeper on the beach.
And like they played even with Leicester. Like I don't know, that match was very even until the red card.
I mean, this match kind of sets up, we've seen a couple of teams that have played similarly to what Nottingham Forest is going to do, like the match against Everton, where Everton was very dangerous in transition against Aston Villa. They created close to 2 expected goals, just didn't put the ball in the back of the net. West Ham put up over 2 expected goals against them, only scored once. Chelsea obviously put in a great performance before Graham Potter got sacked, created over 2 expected goals, couldn't find the back of the net. Last 6 matches, Aston Villa's conceded 7.8 expected goals and only conceded twice overall. So, and I also saw that Unai Emery has the 3rd most points in the Premier League since he took over Aston Villa. Only Arsenal and Manchester City are the only 2 teams that have more points, and right behind them is Brighton and Bournemouth. So, yeah, I mean, I went through my projections, and I have Forest at around plus 350, and I was entering in the number, and I was showing Edge in their money line at plus 440. I was like, all right, are we doing this? I guess, like, because now the market's going to be a little overvalued on Aston Villa. So, yeah, I guess we're going with the tricky trees this weekend, Michael. But I'm with Anthony. I think I need a straight, +1 at like -120.
Nah, just go to the money line here.
I mean,
because there's blowout potential. I think there's just as much blowout potential with this.
I agree.
It's
just the Nottingham Forest away from home thing. It's just always stuck in my head whenever I see them. Like I understand that they've underperformed on the road, but to score 5 goals in 14 matches and concede 34 is just a very, very alarming thing to look at. So, I mean, I could be smart and just say like, oh, they're due for positive regression because they've created 12.5 expected goals on the road. So they're due to score at least, something. So I don't know. Maybe I will be on Forest, but yeah, the market's getting a little too high with how good Aston Villa has been running.
Forest is 0 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses in their last 8. Ringing endorsement, but their XG data doesn't really suggest that they deserve anything better than their -10 goal differential in that span. But it's just this Villa team's not that good. Forest, like with Steve Cooper, he got backed by the owner today, and I think this is a game that I think they'll have circled as a potential, like, let's steal 3 points to help our cause. It feels like a really good spot to sell high on Aston Villa, who all three of us can agree are running quite hot. So
and we get Forest in his slam spot after that. They got United at home. Perfect. So if Forest, if you're listening, Forest, can you,
they'll
if Forest
probably be
loses
catching
this,
a goal in a quarter there.
oh yeah,
you can roll it over.
Probably
Just
have
a
to
money.
bet them.
It's a money line
rollover
if I've ever
Villa
seen one.
to United. Oh,
Yeah.
and then even better, Michael. They go to Liverpool after that.
See, there you go. Three plus 4. You get like what, plus 450. Then you roll that over onto like
you
the
get
9,
like a 35, nice 35 to 1
1
ticket there,
Yeah,
Michael.
it's just gonna be insane. Brentford and Newcastle now. The Bees plus 260 at home. Newcastle plus 110 coming off of a 5-1 victory over West Ham. The Bees are wobbling a little bit.
They're fine.
2-1 in their last 3. Win, draw, loss. 6.3 expected goals allowed in that span. A lot of that obviously came in that circus against Brighton. I would lean towards Brentford here. I don't. It's not jumping off the page at me like that. That Nottingham Forest number is. But that's where I'd be looking. BJ, what do you have?
I actually like to look at the over here. The matches between these two teams, obviously Brentford, this is only Brentford's second season in the Premier League, but they've been very, very chaotic the 3 times that they've faced each other. If you look back last season at St. James Park, it was a thrilling 3-3 draw where Newcastle created over 2.5 expected goals. Then the reverse fixture at the Brentford Community Stadium, Brentford got a red card in like the 10th minute, and then Newcastle scored 4 goals against them. And then the earlier meeting at St. James Park, Newcastle beat them 5-1 off of 1.5 expected goals. And Brentford's only goal was off an Ivan Toney penalty. So, and I think this is just something that kind of gets lost when betting the Premier League and styles of play with, Brentford and Newcastle are obviously 2 of the better defensive teams in the Premier League and are very, very good at sitting deep and defending their penalty area. But when you have 2 teams that play a very similar style, a very transitional, looking to beat teams on counter, it actually creates a very end-to-end style match. And you saw that with Newcastle and United with the way Newcastle was able to press them and get chances going in transition. The same thing when Newcastle just went and faced Nottingham Forest, another low block transitional team where there's a lot of end-to-end type stuff that can happen with these 2 matches. So I'm projecting close to 3 goals between these 2 sides. So I think this is a decent spot for an over. Obviously, Newcastle just put 5 past West Ham, who is one of the better low block defensive teams in the Premier League. So I think it's a good spot here for the over.
All 3 of us are in agreement for this next one. West Ham will travel across London, take on Fulham. Fulham's plus 180, West Ham plus 162. Draw plus 225. The Cottagers will be without Alexander Mitrovic, who
8 matches.
He can't do. Dust up with an official. Fulham's 0-1-3, win, draw, loss in their last 4. 9 goals allowed in that span, 4 scored, and they just gave up over 3 expected goals to mighty Bournemouth. Anthony, you can go first here, but I think this is a really good spot for the team that we're betting.
Yeah, I mean, you get hammered in the midweek, crushed in that match. Then you get to go on the road against, in a London derby. But really, this is just like classic positive regression team, negative regression team. West Ham back against the wall with Moyes here. Fulham, I think, we've talked about them over and over again, overachieving, but now you're finally starting to see the regression. They've lost 3 in a row in the league, gave up over 2 expected goals in all 3 of those matches, really weren't competitive in any of those matches. I know that they ended up, they took the lead on Bournemouth, but that pretty much was one-way traffic for the majority of the match. Got blown out by Arsenal. They've been much better at home this year, but again, I just don't trust this attack. They don't really seem to have a plan B. And this is very quietly an attack that even before they lost Mitrovic, had only created more than 1 expected goal in 2 out of 6 matches. So you're talking about a Fulham team that just ran over its skis for the entirety of the first half of the season. And now reality is setting in. West Ham, draw no bet. I project them around -120. So I'm happy to take them -110. I still have West Ham as a top 10 team in the league. And that sounds crazy, but they're 10th for me. And I still have Fulham sitting. Great podcasting. Pause. Hold on. 14th. So, 10th at 14th. There's a bit of a drop off in between those teams. I project West Ham better and still better away from home. Give me the Hammers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to take the Hammers on the money line. It's, why not just keep sinking money into David Moyes' ship until he goes down? He treated me so well last season. VJ, final thoughts here on West Ham and Fulham?
Yeah, I mean, it's just an awesome slam spot here for West Ham. You know what's crazy is West Ham, I agree with you. If they are a top 10 team, they actually have a better expected goal differential than Chelsea this season, which I think is very, very crazy to think about. Plus 3.1, Chelsea's at plus 2.3. I mean, Fulham's now fourth to last in expected goal differential. Like, Alexander Mitrovic is probably, would you say, the most important player to his individual team in the Premier League of what they want to accomplish and how they can actually have success, because we know this about Fulham. They want to get the ball out wide. They want to swing in crosses, and to be able to do that, you got to have a great front man and a guy who can go get those crosses like Mitrovic. Carlos Vinicius just really isn't that type of guy. So we've seen a little bit of what Fulham is like without Mitrovic. They've been without him for 7 matches in the Premier League this season. Without him, they're only averaging 0.81 expected goals per match. With him in the lineup, they're at 1.37. So he makes about a half a goal difference to what Fulham can do offensively. So this is just a really, really good West Ham spot, who has been by expected goals half a goal per 90 better than Fulham this season. So even accounting for home field advantage, even not taking into account Mitrovic being out, there's no way you can get to West Ham basically being a straight pick 'em here at Craven Cottage. So I'm with you guys. West Ham drawn a bet at -110.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. Mitrovic was getting 3.97 shots per 90 this season, which is ridiculously good numbers.
He's the most important player to his team in the Premier League.
Yeah, 12 expected goals and 20, so a little over 0.6 xG per 90. Carlos Vinicius is getting 2 fewer shots per match, and actually doesn't have terrible passing numbers, like gets involved in the buildup a little bit, but 13 shots in 7 matches is really bad. And 1.6 XG, it's just not striker level production. We've seen enough Carlos Vinicius.
And this is something to keep in mind because, like we saw with Bournemouth last week, is like these, I believe the market is going to correct once Mitrovic is going to be out here for a long time. I mean, his return date is going to be May 13th. It's going to be a long time before he actually comes back. So I would implore people that, the downswing happens when we talk about expected goals and teams that have overperformed. The Fulham team has overperformed for a really, really long time, and now they're without their best player. This is when the downswing happens. So get in on the Fulham fades early and often before Mitrovic comes back.
Leicester City, sans Brendan Rodgers, -120 hosting Bournemouth, plus 320, the draw, plus 280. I got nothing here. I mean, I
gotta say, Michael, I had to do a double take because their interim manager is Adam Sandler.
Sandler, yeah.
I thought it was Adam Sandler for a second.
Yeah.
I about collapsed.
You just with the way that
the
way that soccer's gone celebrity.
I know.
You wouldn't put it past the team because they are co-caretaker managers.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, from a betting standpoint,
this is an easy pass. Yeah. I mean, I would say this, like Leicester came out in a very, very defensive formation and they started Vardy up top, which I thought was quite interesting against Aston Villa. So if they do that here against Bournemouth, I mean, you may be potentially looking at it under, like I project 2.42 goals for this match. So if they start Vardy up top and they come out, with Ndidi and Dewsbury Hall, and they bench some of their attacking players, that you might be able to look at a chance for an under. But yeah, this is a very easy pass. Even if you want to look at Bournemouth, they've been very, very poor away from home. So, but hey, this is a huge one for the relegation battle too, because Leicester is now down in it, and Bournemouth needs this really badly to get out of it. So it's actually a very, very fascinating match.
I would bet the under if Vardy starts. I feel the same way. Vardy's cooked. His numbers have fallen off a lot. And it was a much more defensive approach. They really didn't do a ton of pressing of Villa high. the numbers suggest, they kind of let Villa do a little bit more build up and then waited and kind of lowered, like they were backed up the line of first attack and first, like, we're going to win the ball off you. And it was an interesting approach, and it worked defensively. I mean, they were very good defensively in the match, conceded one breakaway on a great through ball to Watkins. But other than that, like, Villa didn't really do much in the match. And then they give away the red card, and it was kind of a soft red in my view. But and then, holding on for dear life, couldn't quite do it. But yeah, I would bet the under or nothing here. I think because it's a relegation 6-pointer, I can go one of two ways. Sometimes the market is just way too low on certain attacks and the overs become cheap. This is not really the case because Leicester is a team that has overperformed their attacking numbers all year, despite being in the relegation battle. And with Vardy, they just don't have enough shots.
Let's set up that relegation battle real quick before we move on. It's weird seeing Leicester. I mean, I know we kind of expected it. It is this trio of teams is just weird to see in the bottom.
I mean, they're fifth place 2 years ago. Like,
yeah,
they were like a point. They were a point
half
away from the top 4 like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and now we're talking relegation.
They finished in the top half last season. They finished 8th.
Yeah,
and we were all on. I mean,
I have a very large, not very large, but a large finished bottom half of the table bet on them. So,
ooh, that's tough. I don't know if they're gonna do it. Southampton on 23 points from 29 games at the foot. Leicester 25 from 29. Bournemouth 27 from 29 down there on goal differential. Then it's Forest and Everton both on 27 points as well from 29 games. West Ham 27 from 27. Wolves 28 points from 29 games. Leeds 29 from 29, and Crystal Palace.
My
30
Peacocks
points
are up into 13th.
Yeah, look out. So with that, we can set up Wolves and Chelsea. Wolverhampton 3-1 at home, hosting the Blues -105. The draw is +250. I feel like I've been waiting for the spot for a while. I like Chelsea a million different ways here. You can bet the money line. You can bet a team total. You can bet an alternate spread. That's probably how I'm going to do it. I think Chelsea -1.5 at a good number near 3-1. You can get +280. I think Chelsea -2.5 at +750 is fine. This team's going to start scoring at some point, and maybe it'll come. Maybe it'll come in the Champions League. But maybe it'll come under Frank Lampard if he is indeed going to be the interim manager. A couple weeks ago, someone on this podcast assured me that Todd Boehly, the new owner of Chelsea, wouldn't do something so crazy. He's not crazy. He's not going to fire Graham Potter. Who would do that? What owner?
From the outside looking in, he looks.
What owner is ever crazy? The guy who spent $500 million on transfers.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely sane to spend $250 million in a January transfer window,
normal behavior,
only to fire your manager.
You know
after
what?
You said you want a long-term plan.
And normal when someone's behaving that normally, spending half $1 billion
very normal
on transfers after coming in as a new owner. You expect him to keep acting normally, and that's what I guess he did, because we were told he's not crazy and wouldn't do something crazy.
Can't take Roman Abramovich out of this club, Michael.
I don't even think Roman Abramovich would have fired.
Michael, you already missed your victory lap chance because you missed the Sunday show.
I know. Well, I'm not going to miss it. So, whoever that was on the podcast who said Todd Boehly would never do that I don't know. Doesn't look good. Anyways, Chelsea.
I was wish casting it
by $1 million here
because it was stupid. I agree, though. I like the Blues.
They could name it
again. I mean, come on. I bet them every game. If you follow me in the app, I either bet them or the over. We had them against Spurs, they lost. We had them against Dortmund, they won. We had them against Leicester, they won. I was starting to feel really good. We had the over. I had the over against Everton. BJ had Everton. Michael had Everton. Probably could have won that. But I mean, they've created over 1.5 expected goals in their last 6 matches. This is a team that has found something that works for them to get a bunch of really good opportunities for Havertz and Felix to run at defenses. And it's what they're very good at. And N'Golo Kante is so important because it stabilizes them. He along with Enzo and Kovacic, like, it's a very effective midfield. ball winning, ball progression, ball carrying. All of them have different skills, and they're all very functional. And I think it showed in the dominance against Liverpool. I mean, that match was one-way traffic from start to finish. Wolves are very overmanned here. Wolves are not good enough, I think, attack-wise to stay in this. So at plus, you can find plus 105. I love Chelsea here. I also kind of like the over, of course, but I just think the market's so low on this Chelsea attack, and there's no real reason for it to be.
I gotta say something wonderful because I don't have anything on this match, but I was reading something and I don't know if I totally agree with it. But somebody is basically saying like XG doesn't really take account for what Potter was trying to do at Chelsea and both at Brighton, where the chances that they would create would be obviously very, very difficult chances for the personnel that they had. So guys like Havertz, Neil Maupay, and whoever he had at Brighton, to where, somebody like a Lewandowski or a Holland or whatever it is, that 0.45 chance they convert just at such a better rate than anybody else. And so it's very, very difficult for guys like Felix and Havertz under tight spaces, under tight windows, where an XG might say like, oh yeah, it was a 0.45 XG, but we just don't have the strikers, the personnel to play the type of system, the crossing and everything like that. I don't know if I totally agree with it, but it also kind of makes sense for what Chelsea's overperformance is, right? And it's kind of what we've been saying. Like, it's just basically Havertz, like he's just on a bad finishing run and he's maybe just not a number 9, an out and out striker. And that's kind of what they need. So I don't know. I don't know if I totally agree with it, but it maybe is a little bit of an explanation of why Chelsea just continually underperforms.
Yeah, I don't buy that. I mean, like, they get one-on-ones.
No, I totally agree with it.
One-on-ones with the keeper,
It's one
and
of
they
those
miss.
things. It's like it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I know that I talk about the double pivot guys, but they did a thing where they said that they didn't even think Chelsea were better under Potter. And you could have said that in November and December, but since January, Chelsea have been a very good team.
They've been better. Whoever
the market feels that way too. I mean, look at how much the market upgraded Chelsea. To the point where I was not even having that much value on them anymore because the market was bumping them faster than I could, even in my numbers. And yeah,
I'm waiting for the day
minus 155 against Aston Villa, who's one of the hottest teams in the league.
Who's going to be Potter's next club? What do you think?
Tottenham.
The United States men's national team.
See, I think it's going to be Everton.
No.
They got the best manager in the world.
West Ham is interesting, maybe.
Yeah, the West Ham. He said he's going to take a break though. He would Leicester immediately offered him. That's when you've kind of I understand Chelsea, it doesn't matter, but when you fire your manager and literally the next day a team comes calling and be like, yes, I want him. That's kind of how maybe oops, maybe we got rid of this guy too soon.
Well, we talked about this on Sunday. The market moved hard against them in the Champions League, and I disagree with that move.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, you want to talk about Spurs?
Not really.
All right. BJ, let's talk about Spurs. They're plus 155.
Can I take a victory lap?
Against Brighton.
Why? Because your team sucks?
Yeah. I mean, I was mocked on this show.
How do they suck?
I was mocked on this show.
They're in fourth place in the Premier League. They're in fourth place in the best league in the world.
Yeah,
they drew one of the better teams in the Premier League.
I don't even know what the table looks like half the season. I was shocked when I found out they were in fourth after the game against Everton. Here's the thing. I was mocked on this show in the fall when Brighton hosted Spurs. Brighton was a pick, and I said Brighton should be favored in this match. And I was mocked by both of you. Said the number's crazy, no respect for Tottenham. Now it's at Spurs and Brighton are a pick, and I finally agree that the market is very high on Brighton, who by XG difference might be the third best team in the league.
They are the third best team in the league. They're good. The top 4 is going to be Arsenal, City, Newcastle, Brighton. That's going to be the top 4.
It would not shock me.
Caught up with Brighton. It sucks. I texted Anthony. I said I was getting really excited about Brighton plus a half because 2 years ago they would have been plus a half. The market wouldn't have priced them this low against Tottenham. And then I saw they were a pick. I was like, the number's right. I can't do anything.
I still have Brighton 5th, but I think I might be wrong.
They might be the third best team in the Premier League, honestly. They just keep putting up a zillion expected goals every single game. It's just every time. They're so good, man. Oh my gosh. And Evan Ferguson is awesome, by the way.
Yeah, he is.
They finally found a great striker that can, capitalize on a lot of these chances.
Needed somebody to fill Neil Maupay's shoes.
I know.
Fine.
Yeah, I mean,
so
they're just a
good.
much better team than Tottenham. So like, I wouldn't blame anybody who bet them in
But
this match.
what I will say
now
is
they're
this
on the
match,
road.
this is kind of a bad matchup for Brighton, given what Tottenham likes to do and how aggressive Brighton is and committing men forward and
Are
Tottenham's
we even
ability
good
to
at that
counterattack.
anymore?
I don't
We keep
know,
saying
but
are we good at that anymore? I don't think we're
I
that
don't
good at
know.
that.
Well, you're in fourth place. Like, I mean, again, they did nothing against Everton on Monday besides the penalty. So
How many teams in the Prem are better than Spurs?
I would say
I have 7 better.
7. Ooh, I was gonna say like 5.
The only teams
United's not better than them.
City, Arsenal,
Liverpool's
Newcastle.
not better than them.
Yeah, they are. Liverpool, Brighton, Chelsea, and United, all better than Tottenham.
Arsenal, City, Newcastle, Brighton, Brentford.
I don't think they're better than Spurs, but they're not that far behind. I mean, I'd happily bet Brentford plus a half at Tottenham.
Yeah.
But like I said.
Do they still have another match against Brentford on the schedule, or they've played them twice?
We still have one more.
Oh, boy. I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, I have nothing else here, though. I don't have a bet.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
this
I
is
may
easy
end up
bet.
getting on Brighton.
Maybe an
might bet
over, but just because Brighton's matches under De Zerbi are just insanely high event. But the price on that is getting a little out of hand as well. So I think the market's just caught up with how good the Seagulls are.
All right.
Spurs end the season hosting Brentford, going to Leeds.
Mm.
That will be 2 fades.
15 seconds,
assuming
and I truly mean it. I will cut you off after 15 seconds, because we've talked a lot about Brighton. What number are they going to open to win the Premier League at next season? Anthony, you can go first.
40 to 1.
PJ,
No, they'll be 80 to 1.
I think
what Newcastle was coming into this season.
I think they're going to be around the Newcastle range. Is what I was going to say, like 80 to 100. I think I would bet it. Who knows?
Anything over 10 to 1 for top 4.
Who knows what happens with the transfer market? But like,
and De Zerbi,
if they're close,
everybody wants De Zerbi.
Yeah, exactly. If they're close
yeah.
to triple digits with the same manager and like a team that hasn't been ravaged by other teams. Southampton next. They're 12 to 1 hosting City, who trail Arsenal by 8 points. Minus 450. The draw is plus 525. Nothing for me from a betting standpoint at all. I find this game to be wholly uninteresting.
I kind of like Southampton plus 1.5 at plus 110. I mean, this is obviously a sandwich spot here for City. They're going to play Bayern in the Champions League. Obviously, they still need to fight for the Premier League title, but I only have City at minus 217. And obviously, they've been running incredibly hot offensively over their last 3 games. But I mean, listen, Southampton beat them in the EFL Cup at home 2-0, and City didn't really play that much of a reserve type lineup. So there's a chance here where Southampton could come out, play a low block, and listen, they've given City some problems. Like if you talk about bogey teams, like they've kind of been a bogey team for City over the years. Last season, they drew City twice, and if you look at the expected goals, like City didn't completely blow them out. Obviously, City killed them earlier this season 4-0, and it was complete dismantling. But I mean, the Southampton team, they got to show some life at some point, or else they're getting relegated. I mean, they probably are going to get relegated. They're probably going to finish dead last in the Premier League. But I am projecting some value on them. Like I only project them at 7 to 1 as a 7 to 1 underdog here. So I might. This kind of feels like maybe that City Crystal Palace match from a few weeks ago, where City was about to come play in the Champions League and they won that match 1-0 and kind of slept through it. I think we might have a similar match here. Southampton's obviously going to sit in their 4-4-2. They're going to stay very compact, defend their penalty area. Maybe they get a few set piece opportunities to get the ball in the back of the net. But at some point, this defense has to regress positively. So Southampton plus 1.5 at plus 110, I think has some value.
Yeah, I think if City's flat, it manifests itself in them defensively falling asleep and conceding. So you could sell me on a Saints team total. But I will not be betting City against City's attack. I have lost a good amount of money in the last month doing that, and I'm going to put a pause on it for this one. And it's a good time. There's no better time to add more to your City to win the league positions.
Oh, shut up.
Leeds United is where we will wrap up the Premier League for this show. Leeds plus 110 hosting Crystal Palace. Roy Hodgson, the Roy Hodgson revolution. We talk about these these managers like De Zerbi and Marco Silva, these progressive managers, and who's more progressive than Roy Hodgson? He leads Crystal Palace to Elland Road here. I want another one that not too interested in. I think it would be a Palace as an underdog or nothing. They looked really good, I thought, and they're like, what is he doing?
He pumped Leicester.
Yeah,
like he absolutely pumped them. Like it was.
Hodgson.
I mean,
Hodgson might have a future in this.
He might have a future in this league, Michael, beyond this season, right? I mean, like, what did they outshoot Leicester, like 27-3 or something like that? Like they were completely. I mean, they had like a 75% field tilt. They haven't done that to any team in the Premier League under Vieira in his tenure. Like, I don't know what Hodgson did. I thought it was going to be 4-4-2, like stay compact against Leicester.
Yeah.
No. 4-3-3. Let's get them all moving forward. Let's press them high and let's cause some problems and let's tilt the field on them, control possession. Like, again, Leeds, what I'll say about this is like they've been much more passive under Javi Garcia. Like they're not pressing as high as they have been in the past. They've been staying a lot more compact. So it's led to some lower event type matches. Obviously, the match against Arsenal they conceded 4, but I mean, without Tyler Adams, I mean, Leeds they're not completely cooked or finished because like McKennie and Roca are fine, but Adams is so important for what they want to do in the middle of the pitch. So I need to see another Roy Hodgson match though, Michael. I don't know if I believe what happened against Leicester. Maybe my eyes were deceiving me. Let's see it one more time before we get on the Palace train.
Bundesliga time. Anthony, you can kick us off here.
Yeah, I'm going to take Stuttgart on the money line at plus 130. I said last week that I might bet Stuttgart every match for the rest of the season. So far, I'm 0-1 on those bets after they got beat and had 2 goals right off in the first half and then lost 3-0 to Union on the road. They go on the road again to Bochum. They are, look, my numbers project this to be about plus 110. So plus 125 is a pretty small edge for me. But I think Stuttgart eventually is just going to positively regress here. And now I get the worst team in the league in Bochum. I know they've been pretty good at home, pretty tough to beat, but eventually bounces need to start going this team's way, which is why I want them on the money line. I'm not going to lay huge juice on them, draw no bet. I'm just going to take the money line because this team is not getting relegated. They're going to start turning the corner. New manager coming in, trying to fix what's been a very broken team for the last year.
What about you, BJ?
I like Cologne. Draw no bet at minus 130 on the road against Augsburg, as Anthony likes to call Frogsburg. They're doing it again. They have the worst non-penalty expected goal differential in the Bundesliga, but they are sitting in 12th place. Somehow they're going to survive yet again. They are 17th in non-penalty expected goals for, 17th in non-penalty expected goals against. It is, again, outside of Bochum, because Bochum's conceded 1 billion penalties, they are the worst team in the Bundesliga. And Cologne is a team very similar to that to Stuttgart, where they're sitting in the middle of the table, but they are actually a top half of the table, maybe top 7 type Bundesliga type team. I mean, they're 3rd in big scoring chances. Defensively, they've conceded the 4th fewest big scoring chances. And the big thing in this matchup is Cologne is a very, very good set piece team. 2nd in XG per set piece. Augsburg, one of the worst defenses in defending set pieces. And the flip side of that as well is Augsburg is very, very, they're a 4-4-2, they're one of the more compact teams in the Bundesliga. So they're obviously very reliant on set pieces. Well, Cologne's a top 5 team at defending set pieces. So really, really good matchup here for Cologne. I project them around an even money favorite on the road here. So just going to fade one of the worst teams in the Bundesliga.
We're buying low here because BJ's bet Cologne has no wins in their last 6.
Yep.
My team Stuttgart has 1 win in their last 8, and it came against Cologne.
Yep.
So I mean, just classic buy lows here in a German league that has been quite bonkers with who's actually in the relegation zone. 2 pretty good teams relatively could go down this year.
What about La Liga? Anything for you here, BJ?
Yeah, I like Almeria and Valencia over 2.5 goals at plus 115. I don't really think any match involving Almeria should be sitting at plus money or over 2.5. Their matches have been thrilling in Spain. They just coming off a 2-2 draw with Celta Vigo. Their matches are averaging 2.93 expected goals per 90 minutes. And that's because they have one of the worst defenses in Spain, allowing over 1.7 expected goals. Last 7 matches, they've allowed 15.4 expected goals. They're allowing the second most big scoring chances in Spain. And they're allowing the most crosses in Spain, which is really important against Valencia, who is very, very good at attacking wide areas, completing the second most crosses of anybody in La Liga. And Valencia is an underperforming offense. They're due for positive regression. 30 goals off of 35.3 expected. And in their last 9 matches, they've scored 4 goals off of 11.5 expected. So in Almeria, though, they are a dangerous counterattacking team. They're very, they set up very, very direct. They are top 10 in expected goals. They're top 5 in final third to penalty box conversion rate. So they are pretty deadly going forward. So over 2.5 plus 115. I predict about 2.7 goals for this match. So I like the value on plus money on over 2.5.
Anthony, anything for you in Spain?
Yeah, I'm going to take Barca, Girona, both teams to score. Look, every time Girona's gone up in class, like they're a newly promoted team to the league. Anytime they've gone up, they've actually been very competitive offensively, produced at least 1 expected goal against Atletico, against Real Sociedad, against Real Madrid, against the very same Barcelona team that they lost 1-0 to, against Rayo Vallecano, against Bilbao twice. Like they have been a team that has caused problems in attack for these top sides. Barca's only conceded 9 goals in the league this year. Ter Stegen has been unbelievable. But I think the 4 goals they conceded to Real Madrid today are a harbinger of things to come for this defense, which is that they have run like gods. No team has allowed more posts than Barcelona this year. Like I said, with Ter Stegen's shot stopping, it's been incredible in La Liga for this defense, just so overvalued in the market. I like both teams to score.
Italy, BJ.
Yeah, I'm going to go Friday. Salernitana and Inter over 3 goals at plus 105. Salernitana's defense is so bad. Like, just so bad. 1.8 expected goals allowed per 90 minutes, and they're really bad against good competition, against the big 7 in Italy, which is Roma, Napoli, Juventus, Inter, AC Milan, Atalanta, and Lazio. They've allowed 22.3 expected goals in 10 matches, so you can all do the math out there what that is per match. They're the worst pressing team in Italy. They're second to last in box and final third entries allowed. Just a really, really bad defense. And even though Inter has been going through this rough patch in Serie A, they're still one of the best offenses in Italy. I mean, they're second in non-penalty expected goals, and they're way overdue to score. 1 goal in their last 3 Serie A matches off of 7.8 expected. That is insane underperformance. I know they have a huge Champions League match against Benfica coming up this week, but they're in a massive battle to stay inside the top 4, and their manager, Ignazi, is still trying to save his job. So this match is going to be very, very important for them. Salernitana, I don't know if you guys know this, but they have one of my guys who I've been cursing his name for quite a long time on this podcast right now, Buladia, formerly of Stade de Reims and Villarreal. Legend. Yeah, he scored 10 goals for Salernitana this season. It has cost me quite a bit of money. They have some attacking talent. Piatek who recently played at AC Milan. He's got over a 0.4 xG per 90 minute scoring rate. So there's some talent on this Salernitana offense, and Inter's defense is going to be without screener. So I think it's a decent spot here to back it over. I think it's going to be a really high event.
Tune in for Lukaku to miss 3 sitters.
And Buladia to hit the back of the net 3 times from outside the box.
Anthony, anything in Serie A?
Yes. It's funny. When you think of Roma and you think of Torino, you probably think of 2 teams under teams. And so when they play each other, everybody naturally thinks, oh yeah, I'm going to bet the under. Well, the market isn't that stupid.
It's 2.
And the total is 2. And that is too low. I like both teams to score, and I like the over. I'm going to split my bet on those 2. Again, it's basically just intuitive to the sense that yes, the market is aware that Roma and Torino play low event matches, and they overcorrect in this case. It's 2 attacks that have vastly underperformed XG this year and could have more goals than they actually have. And Roma especially is not a bad attacking team. Once they go up a goal, yes, they tend to shut it down. But if they fall behind, if they're trying to hold a lead, Torino is capable of getting back into games, and they've played some pretty back and forth crazy matches this year. just because Torino to be a staunch defensive team doesn't mean they haven't gone back and forth with Milan or even Juventus a couple weeks ago. And so I like the over here and both teams to score. It's a contrarian play for sure. It could look stupid if it ends 0-0, but total is too damn low.
BJ, you're the only one taking a dip in Ligue 1 this weekend.
What?
Marseille's hanging around.
No, I'm going to go with the other team.
BJ.
I'm going to go with the team that the only team that actually has a chance of overtaking PSG, and that's Lens against Strasbourg. I like both teams to score at even money. Strasbourg, electric offense. We all know that about them. Should be in the top 3 at this point instead of in the relegation battle. They've created 10.5 expected goals in their last 6 matches, coming off a thrilling 4-3 loss to Monaco. The Lens defense has run incredibly hot this season, like ridiculously well. 20 goals allowed off of 31.5 expected in their last 4 matches. They've allowed 4.3 expected goals and only conceded once. It's a mixture of 2 things. Nottingham Forest legend Bryce Samba was in net, and he's running incredibly hot, +6 post-shot XG, ±. And they've allowed the 4th most shots in France inside the 6-yard box, 28, but their opponents have only scored 8 of them. So they're just running ridiculously hot on those 2 fronts. Strasbourg defensively is a disaster. We all know that. They're 1.8 expected goals allowed per 90. The last time they faced Lens created over 1.8 expected goals. Strasbourg's going to be without 2 of their main defenders. This is just not ideal scenario for them defensively, but they do present offensive problems, offensive things they can do to present Lens some problems for defenses run ridiculously well. So both teams to score at even money. Also, I don't want to do it, but PSG is getting a little cheap against Nice. I'll just say that over the weekend. I don't know where their heads are at right now, or if they even really care at this point. But I will say that I am projecting some value on PSG. But I need to wait and see what the market does a little bit because -115 it's a tad low for me.
I bet Lens next weekend plus a half against PSG. Look ahead. I think PSG will drop points in both matches.
Does Galtier leave by that point? And then is it Steven Gerrard, right? It's coming in. That was the report in the Scottish Sun.
He will collapse the team to cash my Marseille future.
Yeah.
He might be the next playing Liverpool. The long game all along.
He might be the next Liverpool manager. I'm just going to say
that was the whole point. You bet Villa to do well, wait for them to fire Gerrard. They do it. And then you fade PSG knowing they're going to go for Gerrard, and then it works out in the end.
Yeah.
Long cons.
Time for our underdog parlay. We can go to you first here, BJ.
What's been the most successful thing for me in these underdog parlays over this entire season? It's Sevilla fading Sevilla just week in and week out. So let's do it again on Friday. Celta Vigo +250 on the road at Sevilla. Celta Vigo's been hot offensively. 13.3 expected goals in their last 8 matches. They're a top half of the La Liga team by every metric that you look at. And the market just continues to price Sevilla like they're still the 6th or 7th best team in La Liga when they're just still closer to the relegation zone than they are to the top 4. This is still a bottom 5 defense. I don't really think they're back after scoring 2 goals and beating Cadiz on the road last weekend. So, and they're also more focused on the Europa League. They got Manchester United coming up on Thursday. So that match is way, way more important to them than this little dinky match on Friday against Celta Vigo, which, is not going to make any difference of how they finish in La Liga. So Celta Vigo +250 for me.
My underdog is Everton. They're +650 at the Theatre of Dreams, Old Trafford. 3-3 under Sean Dyche, -1.6 expected goal differential. Just a vast improvement. Only getting better. We have not seen the top yet, Anthony. We haven't seen the top of this team. They're just going to keep climbing. And they just set up well. They profile really well as an underdog right now. And good at set pieces, good defending set pieces. Will make life hell on teams in the midfield. That's a big deal when Casemiro's out. Number's just too good.
I'm starting to think the worst thing we did as a podcast was hit that big Everton ticket a couple weeks ago when they played Arsenal, because now Michael is just going to say every single week, well, Everton is 6-1 again. And
why wouldn't you? They're going to keep, like I said,
they'll do one more. I agree.
Yeah, they've got one or two more in
net. Like if you hit the +750 with us on Arsenal, you're sitting up, and then, you can lose like 5 in a row, and then eventually they'll win again. And then boom.
Yep.
Genius. All right, look, Atletico Madrid is really flying under the radar. They've won 4 straight in the league. They've pretty much solidified their top 4 position. We spend so much time talking about Real Madrid. We haven't talked about Atleti, who has had an increase in their underlying numbers as well. But now they're going on the road in a Madrid derby against Vallecano. Vallecano, such a good underdog because their defensive press is such a good system that causes real problems for these top teams that are used to having a lot of the ball. And I think Vallecano at plus 350 is undervalued here. I think this is close to a coin flip matchup, so I will take them.
117 to 1. We're back.
That's better.
Much.
That's why we went 0-3 last week. It wasn't high enough.
Better. All right, on to our favorite bets in the Premier League for this weekend. Anthony, you and I are in the same match, so we can go first. I'll set it up with Chelsea minus 1.5 plus 280 taking on Wolverhampton. I've been waiting for the spot for a long time. Like Chelsea's, the goals at one point are just going to pile in. Over 2 expected goals against Liverpool. 0 goals scored. At some point, it's just going to happen, and who better than Wolverhampton for it to happen to? This is a good spot. I'm very excited, and I'm excited to have Anthony with me in some fashion.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned with the Champions League look ahead, but Chelsea is clearly undervalued here at plus 105. I don't think Wolves have the attacking firepower to keep up with Chelsea. Chelsea returning N'Golo Kante is so massive for their transition defense, so massive for their ability to control matches in the middle of the park. And like you said, they've been doing a really good job of getting Felix and Havertz good chances, running at defenses, taking advantage there. I think that they're undervalued at plus 105, and they're my best bet this weekend.
All right, BJ, take us home.
West Ham, draw no bet, minus 110 at the Craven Cottage against Fulham. This is just a classic buy low, sell high. West Ham just lost 5-1 to Newcastle at home. Now they're going on the road to Fulham, who is going to be without Alexander Mitrovic for 8 matches now. He is the most important player to his team in the Premier League. Without Mitrovic in the lineup, that we've had 7 matches of sample size, that at Fulham is only averaging 0.81 expected goals per match. With Mitrovic in the lineup, they're averaging 1.37, and he means everything to what they want to do in their attack. They want to get the ball out wide, and they want to swing in a ton of crosses. I mean, they complete the second most crosses in the Premier League. Well, West Ham is a top 5 team at defending crosses, and the flip side is West Ham is also very good at getting the ball in wide areas and crossing the ball in. They're also top 5 in the Premier League and offensively in crosses. Well, Fulham's in the bottom 5 at defending crosses, and also this is a Fulham defense that continues. They ran very, very hot before the World Cup break. They just conceded close to 3 expected goals against Bournemouth. The defense is starting to fall off. Now you don't have your best attacker. This is where the Fulham regression hits, and it hits in a big way. So this is a really, really good spot here for West Ham, who by expected goals has been a half goal better than Fulham. So even if you're accounting for home field advantage, even not taking into account the fact that Mitrovic is out, you'd still only have West Ham. You still have West Ham around, minus 0.25 on the road. So can't even get them to a pick'em there. So I think this is great value here on West Ham on the road. Draw no bet at minus 110.
And as a ringing endorsement of that pick, somebody who follows me in the app just DM'd me 10 minutes ago and said, saw you post West Ham on your action for Saturday. As a West Ham fan, I'm dying to know why. Well, when everybody's out, it's usually a good time to get back in.
All right. We are pleased to welcome back former San Diego State Aztec, Eric Wynalda.
You had to go there.
To talk some Champions League. But before we get there, we watched our Classicer last weekend. We've seen some great atmospheres around the Premier League this season. Goodison Park was raucous Monday after Michael Keane scored. So I want to ask you, everyone kind of knows the obvious ones, but if you could give us 1 or 2 of the more underrated environments in European soccer, ones that maybe people don't know about, whether they were from your time with in the Bundesliga or from your time covering the sport. What are 2 that people just won't generally think of right away? Your Anfields, etc.
Right.
Old Trafford. That you think maybe is worth if you're in the area, go check it out.
I would go straight to Kaiserslautern. Even in the second division, they're still selling out. It is insane. And it's funny when you're driving on the Autobahn and you're on your way to Saarbrücken, the club I used to play for, and that's kind of in between Frankfurt. So it's about 35 minutes away from Frankfurt because you can drive really fast. But you're like on the Autobahn and you literally you pass Kaiserslautern as a town and you just see the whole thing. And it's just it's insane. And in the very back corner, you see the stadium. And you got to remember, Kaiserslautern doesn't have more than I don't know 150,000 people that live there, but they have sold out every damn game I've ever been a part of or seen. And that's I think a 48,000 seater. And it's just the walk up is intense. It's kind of like the Green Bay Packers, if you will, of German football or European football for that matter. It's insane. I mean, Dortmund is obviously its thing. I mean, Dortmund is crazy. I played for Bochum, so we had to hear about that all the time because we were right on the line. I actually had to move because I was on the wrong side of that line. Matthias Sommer was the one that told me I needed to move. He made me roll the window down. Like, dude, you can't live here. You got to move. And he was right. But Kaiserslautern is the first one I would go to. It's just, there's the funny thing about Germany, and I know more about it than most people because I played in it, right? But I mean, the bigger stadiums, there's a lot of them still in the second division. You still have Hausfall at Hamburg. Dusseldorf was to the rim of 58,000 the other day in that 2-2. I mean, so it's incredible. There's a reason why the German second division rivals, Serie A and La Liga in attendance because it's just there's so much history there, tradition. But Kaiserslaughter's worth the trip because most people fly to Frankfurt, right? There's some quaint ones too. Freiburg's not it's right in the middle of the Black Forest and it's really weird. But Kaiserslaughter's close enough so if you're in the Frankfurt area, I mean Frankfurt's kind of like it's not that great, It's not it doesn't blow you away. Leverkusen is like really, not the best either. They're a great team. They've had great history, but they don't really sell out, and the environment's not fantastic. But Kaiserslautern is off the hook. If they get back to the first division, which doesn't look like they will, that would be intense. And the other one is by far, hands down, craziest place I've ever been, St. Pauli. That's just nuts. It's nuts. In my day, they used to actually have in the suites that you could see them from the field, where you would see all the Presidium and the even the owner's box was right next to these two suites which had strippers poles in them. Honest to God. And like if they scored, half of us were looking up there to see what was going on in that suite. It was nuts. I mean, they've shut that stuff down, but they're the Raiders. If K-Town is Green Bay Packers, the Raiders are definitely St. Pauli. Those people are nuts. Schalke is huge. Everybody knows that, but that's in Hamburg. That's another cool trip. It's a very Americanized city. It feels like it has that kind of like New York vibe to it. So I would go with those two, St. Pauli and Kaiserslautern, second division teams. Yeah.
Are you going to try to make a trip back for the Euros next summer? Because that's something I'm looking at doing personally, and I'm intrigued by. I've only been to Germany once, and it was a brief Berlin trip.
Oh no, you got to do better than that, man.
I know. I'm basic.
And don't get mad when the first guy that explains the trains to you is kind of a jerk. That's just the way it works. You got to understand the train system. But yeah, that's always a cool trip. What you'll find too, especially if you speak German, is how much the accents change if you start north and you go south. It's just like America. It's like going from Boston to New York to Philly to Nashville to Florida, and it goes from howdy to y'all to what are you looking at, and it's pretty intense if you're really paying attention. And there's like 5 different ways to say hello. You don't even say guten Tag, you say servus the further down you get, and eventually you say grüß Gott, which means greetings to God, and that's how you know you're in Bavaria. And if you don't say grüß Gott, they know immediately that you're not from their area, and they treat you like absolute crap. So just know that going in.
Transitioning a little bit, let's stay on a German team. Bayern Munich is still alive in the Champions League. They got a huge match against Manchester City coming up. I'm fascinated by the tactical battle here. Obviously, Thomas Tuchel has had Pep Guardiola's number on occasion at Chelsea, but when we get to this stage in the Champions League and a team like Bayern and a team like Manchester City who are so used to having so much game control, so much possession, who do you think in this encounter actually holds more possession and forces the other team to maybe defend in their own final third more than they're used to in their own domestic league?
Well, if it were about possession, Tuchel's a genius, man. I mean, people don't realize how good this guy is. His demeanor, the way he talks to people, he's very straightforward. He didn't get on with Christian Pulisic because Christian didn't know how to handle somebody that was that straightforward. But his plan will be very simple, and it's an ambush. So, I watched Brentford play again, and it kind of reminded me of that, a team that's totally willing to just concede possession, sometimes in the 30s and the 20s and still win games. Go back and watch how Brentford actually beat Man City. And that's a good game to go off. It was a 2-1. I know Ivan Toney scored both. He scored one really late. But in that game, he got outshot, 29-10, I think. And the one reality was the quality chances that Brentford got. I think they had 8 on target of the 10 shots, if I'm right. Well, you can quote me on that. I'm pretty sure. I do have a photographic memory. I remember that one. That's how Tuchel's going to play. Now, I don't know what the odds are right now. The last time I saw it was plus 650 for Bayern. I like Bayern. I like Bayern to win the whole thing. I remember I saw the slate here at the Red Rock because I just wanted to get the sheet on the teams that had a chance to win Champions League. And this is before the thing started. Obviously, PSG was really high up there. The Bayern was the sleeper. It was still 16 plus 1600 for Bayern back then, and that surprises me. The reason why this works is if you watch how, I get it, the way that they defend. But if Muller has a good day and he's got the moving pieces around him, this is really problematic for Man City. So Bayern is and the history of Tuchel, getting it right with Pep. It's not so much Tuchel getting it right with Pep. Do your homework on this. Pep gets it wrong at this stage. People need to go back and look at some of the decisions he's made in the bigger games, and especially when he has to overthink stuff. He loses at home at the Allianz 4-0 to Ronaldo's Real Madrid. I mean, that was insane to watch them go down that way. When he was with Bayern, remember he tried to mark Suarez, Neymar, and Messi man to man. That didn't work out either. I mean, he'll do stuff. His assistant coaches have confirmed this. He calls him at like 2:30, 3 in the morning. I got an idea, and he's crazy like that. If you're not really betting against Man City, you're betting against Pep. As much as we make a big deal of his ability to, or it's all about the Champions League, he screws it up in these moments for whatever reason, and I'm betting he's going to do it again.
It's not just with Bayern. There's, the meltdown. They had the Monaco loss. And they got, I think it was 6 in 2 matches.
Real
the
Madrid
meltdown against Real Madrid last year. The Lyon match in the COVID year.
Goals.
Lyon beat them 2-1. They've had
Tuchel's got his number, as you said. It's a thing. It's a thing, and I know that all the way that they've played lately. I mean, what have they got? Like 17 goals in their last 3 games. I mean, they look like they're hitting on all cylinders, but this is a different one. And Bayern always does this. They have a throwaway game before. They got Freiburg 2 times in a row, right? And they just lost one. They'll probably smash them this weekend, but this is the way it works with Bayern, especially with this new look. The way that they played against Dortmund, man, this is a really, really intriguing game.
Just almost all quick. 4 of these are lying near a pick'em, actually, in terms of like who will advance, which makes for a fun round.
And the team I still think represents the best value in terms of a future, if you're looking to get involved, is Chelsea. And
yes,
I think that sounds a little wild.
Not crazy. It's not.
So
it's not crazy at all.
They're double. Real Madrid is 6.5 plus 650 to win the Champions League. Chelsea's 14-1. So you're getting double the odds on 2 teams that I think Real Madrid is better Carlo Ancelotti and Frank Lampard, two Everton legends, going toe to toe. But I think you know who has the advantage there on the touchline. But this team is the process has looked fine this whole time, and they just needed a little bit of like the rub of the luck. And I can't really look away. This is basically where they've been all this entire competition around this odds range, right? And they're in the quarterfinals. So,
and look, you could take some positives out of the other day. Conte's back, and that's a big deal to me. It's hard to try and figure out how to play with Enzo, Kovacic, and Conte. And if you notice, Conte's got like a different role. He keeps venturing forward, and they're like expecting him to like get on the end of something. You know, it's funny that you'd say Lampard. You know, if he takes the job in the interim basis, it's like it's actually what they need. I mean, Lampard was a part of the team that won the Champions League with Di Matteo, and he was like, you know, like, I don't know, guys, just go out there and play. You know, and it was unbelievable, and they ended up winning the whole thing in Munich against Bayern, and Bayern missed a penalty kick in that game. Drogba got a late one on a Mata cross, and they won in the penalty kick shootout. It was crazy. But it was the same feel that I feel about Chelsea right now. It's like we're in the middle of the table. We've spent 700 million. This is crazy. We're on our third manager. I think somebody threw that stat out that Conte has actually started for 3 different managers in 1 year, or like less than a year when we're talking about Chelsea. It's crazy, right? So. And this represents another big change, but I think that's the best bet you can make. I mean, Chelsea could just out of nowhere, just like they did many years ago, just catch them on the wrong day and catch a little bit of luck. It's if that's really the number at 1,600, I'm all in on that.
They just put together. I know they lost to Villa, but once Conte came on, completely dominated Villa for the last half hour of that match, and then. Couldn't finish anything. I mean, they had like 4 1-on-1s with Allison on Saturday or Tuesday, but completely dominated that match too. I mean, XG was over 2 expected goals created, dominated the shots. Liverpool couldn't do anything. They just need a couple of shots to go in. Kai Havertz needs to get his finishing boots on, and they'll
don't celebrate it when you know he hit your hand. I mean, that was so dumb. I was so pissed at him. I was like, come on, you have to know that I hit your hand. But I mean, that chance reminded me a lot of the luck he got against, City when it's a similar goal. Well, it just pops up on him and then he gets to finish it and they win 1-0. It could have been the same story. But I really like this one, especially with everything going on with Ancelotti. It's big response, obviously, with the Copa del Rey with the 4-0 at the Camp Nou. But I don't know. This one has a weird feel to it. I remember when Torres had the breakaway. We had the Gary Neville, orgasmic count or call, whatever you want to call it. It has that feel to it. So I'm really looking forward to both of these games, but this one in particular, yeah.
And then I guess the other question, so the other half of the draw, kind of the way this broke, it's kind of wide open.
Right.
Napoli, Milan, Inter, Benfica. You have a pick on who makes the final out of that group?
Napoli.
Anybody have a chance of beating Napoli?
Napoli would get there, especially with them letting. It's almost like they let Milan have them this week, last week, the 4-0. It was almost like a setup. It's just not. And there's a lot going on. I mean, Spalletti gets in a fight with pretty much everybody, but I think he was having a go at Leao, right? And Maldini, kind of walked in the room and had a go at him. So there's a lot more on the table there. They're not liking each other right now, but Napoli is so good. Osimhen didn't play, so I mean, I just think he got a little bit of red. It's not looking good for Milan, but Napoli is very good. They're just a very, very good team. They should see their way to the final. It's just a matter of who they're playing against, right?
How about the best bet from the Champions League?
Champions League, I still think in this particular matchup, Chelsea is going to surprise. But Bayern's the bet to win it all. For me, I mean, I know that sounds a little wild, but there's just too many things that are kind of stacking up.
Do you
The
think
EPL
real quick before we get out of here? Do you think United has the Europa League wrapped up, or do you think another team's going to surprise somebody?
Well, it's not an easy ride. I'm not convinced right now with United. They're having to change too much. I know McTominay, right? He scores 2 goals against Spain, 2 goals against somewhere. He scores 4 goals on the international break, and now he thinks he's a 10, which was pretty funny. I'm not convinced with United right now. It's just it's still going to come down to the 9. Weghorst isn't what we think. Rashford. He's still on a tear, but they don't. There's something wrong. They don't look all the way there. They don't look the finished product. So it'll really come, because if you really look at how many Italian teams are still in this thing, right? You still have Juventus hanging around. It's if they didn't have that 15-point deduction, they would be challenging for Scudetto. So I mean, it's an interesting competition. It doesn't get enough attention, obviously.
Right.
But I'm not all the way in on.
Well, maybe you should join me and Anthony. I know you brought it up a couple weeks ago. Leverkusen 8-1.
Now Roma.
No,
we're already on Roma. We know
he's got a really good
we know what
player.
Jose's going to do.
Leverkusen will find out what they're all about. They got Frankfurt, which is basically essentially staying in the tournament. It feels like the same damn tournament this weekend, but I'm all in on Alonso. He is the real deal. This is what a manager's supposed to look like, and he's got a team that it's better than, it's young enough. Defensively, they've had their problems. They got Ty out of there, which was probably the best thing they could have done. But I think that this is a team that can surprise, and they're 8-1, because that's and we know how it works with Leverkusen, right? They get smashed every once in a while. I mean, absolutely destroyed, and you kind of go, where the hell did that come from? I don't think that'll be the case with Alonso, but we'll know a lot more after we see what they look like against Frankfurt.
Say maybe if they meet Roma in the semifinals, winner gets the Real Madrid job. How about that?
It's pretty much
Jose and Joe
what we're talking about, right? I mean, it really is. I mean, I thought if they wouldn't have fired Nagelsmann, and gone the Tuchel route, I would have really thought that Alonso had set himself up to be Bayern's manager, because he played there. He knows the lay of the land. He knows everything, and he's really becoming a really beautiful young manager. But yeah, I mean, it would make just as much sense, right? Real Madrid, he would be a great successor to Ancelotti. And Ancelotti, I think one of the reasons why we think they might lose is because they've already won it all. What else does he have to do? I mean, he's won it all everywhere, and they might have a letdown, and it might come in this in the form of a loss in the early stages of the Champions League. So it's good stuff.
Don Carlo will be back. He'll be in like the Gladys Street end as a fan for when Everton.
No, Carlo's going to be having a cappuccino in June in Vancouver, because that's where.
Yeah, I know. I love that he lives there. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's a cool city.
All right, Eric. We appreciate it. Enjoy the Champions League this weekend. We'll see you again soon.
Got it. It's going to be good. I hope we're right. It's going to be fun.